Hey everyone, welcome back to the Soundbyte. My name is Andrew, and today we're going to be returning back to Led Zeppelin, continuing on with the first album, Led Zeppelin 1, or their debut album, which was released in 1969. We're going to continue with the fourth track on the album, Dazed and Confused. Now, we'll give you the heads up that I have actually heard this song. This is one of the few Zeppelin songs that I have heard. And I remember it being kind of like, very kind of like mellow in parts and stuff. This one's another 6.5 minute song, so we're kind of getting right into the belly of the beast here, and kind of getting to know a little bit more about Led Zeppelin. But like I said, I am familiar with this song. I know how this one goes. Whether I've actually heard the entire song, I'm sure that I have, but I don't remember the entire song. If it is the same, because I remember the melody and stuff, and Robert's vocals and stuff. The part that I remember, distinctly remember, I don't know if that goes all the way through the entire song or if it goes into different parts. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So here we go with "Dazed and Confused" by Led Zeppelin. Already, yeah, I know this part already. That melody, that tune right there, is what I know of Dazed and Confused.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. Wanted a woman, never bargained for you. Lots of people talking, few of them know. Soul of a woman was created below.
Yeah. I've definitely heard the entire song, man, for sure. John Bonham going nuts on the drums. I kind of feel like he'd have a lot of fun on this song. He can kind of improvise a little bit, or feels like it's flexible for improvisation.
Every day I work so hard, bringing home my heart and pain. Try to love you, baby, but you push me away. Don't know where you're going, only know just where you've been. Sweet little baby, I want you again.
Before it goes into whatever part this part is, like I said, I have definitely heard this song in full, but parts of it, like that bit there, I don't really remember too much. I guess it has been a while since I've heard the song, but yeah, I guess this is one of the more well-known songs from the Zeppelin. That's probably why I've heard the song a few times over the years, because it is one of those. Whatever you want to call it, a hit song or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's one of those ones that I feel people kind of recognize this song quite a bit. It's probably played on the radio quite a lot, despite the fact that it is 6.5 minutes. It's a track that is interesting because, again, like I said in the last one with "You Shook Me," there was a lot of not "You Shook Me" with "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You." There's a lot of dynamics and stuff. The contrast between like the verses and chorus and stuff. And I kind of feel this one has a little bit of that as well. It kind of ebbs and flows. And I'm definitely seeing a bit of a recurring theme here with a lot of Led Zeppelin's song structures, and that there is a lot of that ebb and flow going on. And like I said before, there was a question that I posed. Were they kind of one of the pioneers of that kind of a song structure? Because that was something that kind of developed quite a lot in the 90s. And a lot of those bands, when they were growing up as kids, obviously listening to bands like Led Zeppelin. So I'm wondering if that was where they were coming where they were taking those influences from and song structures and things like that. That ebb and flow was very much a 90s kind of thing, especially with the grunge and alternative rock and things like that. Whereas if you go pre 70s, going to like sort of early 60s to 1950s and so on and so forth, you didn't really, at least the stuff that I've heard from that era, you don't really hear a lot of those dynamics as much. It does make me wonder if Zeppelin was definitely a pioneer of this kind of whatever you want to call it, a song structure, a factor in that kind of a songwriting style. But yeah, very cool. Dazed and Confused, definitely a song that I'm very familiar with though. So I that sort of opening melody is just something that I think a lot of people recognize when they hear that and go, oh yeah, that's Zeppelin, like without even questioning it. A lot of different like weird like sounds with the guitar and stuff as well. Like a lot of probably guitar effects and things, I guess. Very kind of trippy, psychedelic, which is obviously, that sort of 60s and 70s kind of style, I guess. Psychedelic rock and things like that. Not that Zeppelin were ever that kind of a band, but you know what I mean? It's kind of the thing. You feel like you're just taking tripping out or something. Yeah, I don't remember this part. Back full circle. Yeah, that's a cool part that when they sort of speed up and again the dynamics changes. It doesn't just go from mellow to sort of heavier. It's the dynamics also changing the tempo as well. So kind of goes from slower to faster. That's another thing that they do really well is that they kind of just have this weird, not well, I guess there's some weird sort of parts to it, but like there's this very interesting sort of dynamics between the different sort of elements that they want to put into a song, whether it's a mellow and heavy part, whether it's a slow and fast part, or whether it's just a more vocal oriented or guitar oriented. Like there's all these sort of contrasts that happens with Led Zeppelin songs that I've noticed. And again, just that dynamics. They're a very dynamic kind of band, and that's something that I kind of feel that makes them stand out quite a lot is those dynamics and kind of obviously very jammy as well. Like there's a lot of that psychedelic kind of jam, kind of like that feels like they're sitting in a room together, just jamming out and having a bit of fun and experimenting and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure they probably did. I don't know how much of the recordings were kind of done off the floor or whether they just sort of did their individual parts. I guess back in the day, it used to be all about just sort of having all the guys in the band and recording it just off the floor, I guess. Especially a lot of the psych bands from the 60s and 70s were certainly doing that for sure. I don't know if Zeppelin were that kind of a band, I don't know, but it definitely comes across that way at the very least. So, but yeah, and that part as well, that section that we just listened to just then, it doesn't sound so familiar to me now. I'm not saying that I've never heard it because I'm sure I've heard this song in full before a few times, but it's not as familiar to me as the rest of the songs, rest of the parts of the song, the main melody and stuff. So, yeah, it's definitely a cool thing to hear. It's almost like the first time. Again, coming back full circle, this is the part that I know. So,
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. Won't let a woman never bargain for you. Take it easy, baby, let them say what they will. Don't wax so much when I send you the bill.
I like this part. Yeah, there we go. Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin. That's another winner for sure. Yeah, it's a track, like I said before, that I think a lot of people kind of know. Zeppelin's certainly known for a lot of songs, and I think that's definitely one of them for sure. Because, like I said, that was a song that I honestly can't remember where I heard it. I'm sure I must have heard it on the radio at some point. It was probably played on TV and just in passing somewhere. One of those songs that kind of just gets played a lot. So in movies, I'm sure definitely. There you go. That's Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin off the first album back in 1969. What a way to start off as well. Like, because so far everything's up until this point has been fantastic, and just the fact that this was their first album, and people were saying in the comments as well when I listened to the first opening track, "Good Times, Bad Times," that was literally the first song that people had ever heard from Led Zeppelin. Because there was a question that I asked, and it's like, did they release like singles before that? Was this the first? This is the first thing that ever come out from the band, and people say no, that was the very first song. This is the very first thing that people heard of Led Zeppelin. It was like, wow, this is an amazing way to start off a career. And you can see why they kind of just exploded straight away. Like I totally get it, especially in 1969. And again, it just brings up that argument again because, like, as much as I've kind of gone down that sort of path of, well, Sabbath kind of pioneered heavy metal, like it just seems so obvious. But like now, when you really listen to Led Zeppelin, it's like, I don't know now. You know what I mean? Like it kind of feels like they're not as heavy as Black Sabbath. I think that's what kind of throws people off. It's like, well, this just doesn't sound heavy. So how can they be the first sort of metal band or first band to kind of pioneer heavy metal? But it's like all the elements are kind of there though. Like it's sort of like there, and certainly in the song structures and stuff, and then kind of the way they kind of like bring the guitars up when they need to and stuff, and like there's sometimes the tempo changes as well, where kind of when the speed's up it sounds heavier, at least in contrast to the mellow parts. So that I don't know, that argument now with like heavy metal starting between like Zeppelin, Sabbath or whatever, it's like, okay, that's, I think it's always going to be in the air, always, because I just, who knows really who kind of like started. Maybe they both did, maybe they have their own equal sort of parts and all that stuff. All I know is that there's a lot of metal bands, especially that came out of the 80s. you know, especially the thrash bands and stuff, and they all have credited Led Zeppelin as being an influence. They listened to them when they were a kid, you know. Yeah, just very interesting. I'm glad I'm going down the Led Zeppelin rabbit hole because it's kind of now sort of given me a different viewpoint on how well just the musical evolution it kind of happens, you know. Because I always think of like the Beatles kind of like just did everything. They kind of pioneered all of it, and everything just comes after the Beatles. And to a certain extent, that's definitely true. But I think you can't discredit certain bands like Led Zeppelin and stuff for their own huge influence on so many bands that came afterwards. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the tracks on this album to see where it goes, and then kind of going on to the second album, you know. So, anyway, thank you for tuning in as always. Thank you for subscribing if you have. If you haven't, please subscribe. It all definitely helps the channel a lot, and especially if you want to see more Led Zeppelin. Then you get all the notifications if you subscribe, you know. So, and as I said, we're going to be going down the rabbit hole of Led Zeppelin and going down through the entire album right here. So, let's get into it. Thank you for tuning in as always, like I said, and I'll see you in the next video.